All right, everybody, I'm going to do a very brief synopsis of the first day of the hearing in the motion to disqualify Nathan Wade and FANI Willis from the Georgia RICO prosecution brought by Michael Roman, defendant, one of the many defendants in that RICO prosecution case. The RICO prosecution alleging that Michael Roman, Donald Trump, Jeff Clark, and a slew of others conspired to overthrow the election. Michael Roman made a motion to disqualify FANI Willis and Nathan Wade from the prosecution, alleging that they have an improper relationship from which they stand to benefit financially as a result of this improper relationship, that being that FANI Willis was having an extramarital affair with Nathan Wade, signing contracts, paying Nathan Wade so that Nathan Wade could then allegedly bestow gifts on FANI Willis, take her on cruises, take her traveling, etc., etc. Take her out to meals, take her out to Napa Valley for wine tasting. So that's the allegation, to be distinguished from the oversimplification of the mainstream media of the alleged affair. It's not the alleged affair, the alleged moral depravity of being a homewrecker. Set that aside. That's one thing. That's not the crux of the issue, though the media is going to pretend it is. The issue is not just that FANI Willis engaged in an extramarital affair with Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade allegedly concealed some of his financial assets from his wife that he was divorcing. It's not just that. It's that FANI Willis allegedly improperly financially benefited from that improper relationship, such that they're all conflicted out of this prosecution where they're just sitting there bathing like Scrooge McDuck in cash from the state, from the feds, so they can bump uglies and prosecute Trump. So don't get caught up in the oversimplification. This is beyond just an extramarital affair. This is the corrupt intent behind that. Let's line each other's pockets. I'm going to hire my boyfriend as external counsel to prosecute Trump, pay him so that he pays for lavish vacations, etc., and I financially benefit, I being FANI Willis. Okay, so this was day one of the evidentiary hearing. The judge is Scott McAfee, and he's got the patience of a saint, and he's got the intellect of a scholar. So some people are saying the judge was a little too permissive, a little too tolerant, a little too cowardly to intervene when need be. I don't think so. I think the judge got it. I think the judge gets it, and I think the judge is going to disqualify these two, but we'll get there in a second. So the day starts off with Michael Roman calling Bradley, who is the attorney and partner of Nathan Wade. Partner in that they had a law firm together, Bradley Campbell Wade, or Wade Bradley, whatever you want, whatever the order is. They were allegedly and seemingly business partners. At some point in that relationship, Bradley also became the attorney for Nathan Wade in the context of his divorce from Jocelyn Wade. And one of the prime issues at issue here was whether or not Bradley could testify or invoke solicitor-client privilege. Bradley was called to the stand as the first person because the actual first witness, Yardley, I forget her name all the time, but someone who allegedly subletted her apartment or her condo to FANI Willis, and the idea is that that's where FANI and Nathan were hooking up at Yardley's condo that she subletted to her. So that was supposed to be the first witness. She was a little late, and so they called Bradley, who didn't look too happy being there, didn't want to be there, basically was invoking solicitor-client privilege, even though he was the business partner of Nathan Wade, where they're sharing contracts that are being given out by FANI Willis. I talked about this in the video on Tuesday, summarizing the motions to quash. Bradley plays multiple roles here. Nathan Wade's partner. He's got a contract with the prosecutor's office. It was either taint review or first representation. But bottom line, he's got a contract with the prosecutor's office, FANI Willis, that he also divides 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 with Wade and Campbell. And he's playing the role, wearing the hat of Nathan Wade's divorce attorney. And so he gets to say, I'm not answering any questions about our business relationship when Nathan Wade and FANI Willis started bumping uglies. He says, I can't answer any of that, solicitor client. I would violate my privilege that I have with my clients. And so there were some debates about that. And then what ended up happening ultimately, Yardley, the woman who subletted her condo to FANI Willis, took the stand. She showed up, she came there, and she didn't want to be there either. And it wasn't clear if she was going to be hostile to Ashley Merchant, Michael Roman, or FANI Willis. And at first she was tight-lipped. She didn't really want to get into it with Ashley Merchant. She basically said, yeah, you know, I lent them my apartment. I subletted them my apartment. Did she say that I ever saw them there together? Doesn't really matter, it'll matter when we get into Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, but bottom line, she testified for a bit, and then it ended up coming out in cross-examination that she resigned from Fani Willis's employ because apparently she was underperforming. They had a falling out, and she was told, you're going to be fired if you don't resign, so she resigned. Okay, there was conflicting evidence as to whether or not Nathan Wade and Fani Willis cohabitated in Yertle's apartment. I know I'm messing up her name, but it doesn't matter. All right. Then Nathan Wade took the stand. And oh my goodness, this is where it got good. First of all, I now actually feel bad for Nathan Wade in retrospect. He's still a scoundrel. He's still, I say a philanderer, but by the time you have an affair on your wife, there are other problems in the marriage. That's a symptom of an issue, not the cause of a divorce. But he gets out there and says, yeah, I met Fani Willis in 2019 at some conference that we went to. We did not start being amorous until 2022. The dates are important because the first contract that Fani Willis granted to Nathan Wade was signed before they allegedly, according to their testimony, entered into an amorous relationship. The contract was renewed after they were in an amorous relationship, but we'll get there in a bit. So bottom line, Nathan Wade has to push back the date to which they were engaging in romance, as they called it, to the latest possible date, so that on the one hand, it doesn't make him a perjurer in his divorce proceedings, and on the other hand, he can then say, no, we signed our contract for this external prosecutor before we had a romantic relationship. The problem for Nathan Wade is that in his divorce proceedings, he was specifically asked, in your marriage time and including the breakup, I forget what the exact terms were, did you engage in sexual relations with another woman? And he said no to that question. And so Ashley Merchant, trying to make Nathan Wade look like a perjurer, a liar, a philanderer, a homewrecker, a bastard who hides assets from his wife, his answer to that question was, no, I did not have sexual relations with another woman in the context of my marriage. That's what he said. Well, they got him to admit that he basically had sex with Fani Willis at a point that would have been covered in that question. And he had to weasel out of how it is that he answered, no, I did not engage in sexual relations with another woman in the context of my marriage up till the present date. And his explanation was that he was quick to bring this up multiple times. His wife cheated on him. Jocelyn Wade allegedly cheated on Nathan Wade back in 2015. And he said, our marriage was over as of 2015, even though we remained married under the law until we got divorced. I filed the proceedings. When the kids went off to college, they were majors and adults, and that's when we maintained our sham of a marriage for the benefit of the kids. He's quick to continually point out that Jocelyn cheated on him as though that's relevant. And so his rationale, his explanation for why he didn't commit perjury is that the marriage was basically over as of 2015. So when he said, I didn't have sex with any other woman in the context of the marriage, that was pre-2015, because post-2015, the marriage was effectively over. They only stayed together on paper for the kids. The only problem is that in cross-examination by Trump's attorney, I forget his name, but he's damn good, they basically got him to admit, no, the question was in the context of your marriage and up to the present date, which would have included the separation period. So bottom line, Scott McAfee knows that Nathan Wade is a liar, that he lied when he denied the relationship with Fani Willis in the context of the divorce. Okay, what's that worth in the context of this alleged conflict of interest? To be determined. He's a liar, bottom line. There was another element where he was trying to talk about the contract that he had renewed with Fani Willis, but that was entered into before they entered into an amorous relationship. They met in 2019. 2020, we later discovered he was suffering from, it seems, prostate cancer and being treated for prostate cancer. So he was allegedly, very nervous about germs during COVID, wasn't going out to areas that weren't hermetically sealed, although that story quickly fell apart. And so he could not have engaged in a sexual relationship with Fani Willis in 2020-21 because he was being treated for prostate cancer, which, from what Fani Willis testified when she gets there, she's not going to talk about how that would have emasculated a man, that he couldn't have engaged in stuff because of what he was being treated for. We'll get there. So he says, no, we didn't have any sexual relationship until 2022. We signed our first contract. And he says, I worked more hours than I was even billing for, than I could even bill for on this. Not only did I work to the bone, I didn't get paid for many of the hours that I was working. Some might say, as I've said, That's not an indication that you're working hard. That's an indication that you're working dumb because you've never done a RICO case before, and there's a learning curve when you want to do those, and you don't get the bill for your learning curve when you've never done a RICO case before. But set that aside. Turns out that Nathan Wade is the victim in all of this. He didn't even get paid for all of the work that he did. When asked what percentage of his revenue came from his contract with FANI Willis versus his private practice that he maintained, he said it was about 50-50 in 2022, 60-40 in 2023, meaning he's getting at least as much, if not more, from the one contract he has for the prosecution than from his alleged private practice. When he was asked in cross, as if they thought this made their case, in cross, they said, all right, well, you're getting 50-50, 60-40 of your revenue from this contract with FANI. How much work are you putting into that? He goes, oh my goodness, 99% of the work I do goes to the FANI Willis prosecution contract, which accounts for 50% of my revenue. Not understanding that the flip side of that is that 50% of his revenue comes from a private practice to which he, by his own admission, dedicates 1% of his time. That's a pretty lucrative 50% of your revenue. Bottom line, he's making a butt-ton of money from his contract with FANI Willis, pun intended. The other part of this, they were asking him, Ashley Merchant in chief, you're getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from this contract. He goes, I'm not getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm only making $10,000 a month. Because of the several $100,000 I get from this contract, I've got to split it a third with Bradley, with Campbell, and between me. His argument being that, it's not that lucrative because at the end of the day, he's got to split it a third with two people who aren't working in the file, which is very interesting. Also very interesting that when it comes down to the taint review contracts that his partners have with FANI Willis, they're splitting that a third. When it comes down to the first representation that his other partner has with FANI in the prosecutor's office, they're splitting that a third. Oh my goodness. And then when it came time to discuss the vacations, and he was buying the tickets, paying for the cruises through his law firm, through his corporation. So he denies having any receipts. When he was asked, you said you don't have any receipts of these, trips and whatever. He's like, yeah, I don't. The underlying suggestion being, yeah, because it was paid for by the corporation. So the company pays for it. He gets to go on these trips with FANI Willis, and it gets even better. She allegedly, according to his testimony and hers, repays him for these cruises, for these vacations, in cash. Just cold hard cash, no tracing, no traceability, but we're expected to believe their testimony that she repaid him for these, what would otherwise be gifts, if not something worse. She repaid him in cash. And Nathan said it was like upwards of $10,000 in cash that she would repay him for these expenses that he was claiming as business expenses, presumably. And so the very interesting thing, and the IRS has probably entered the chat, Nathan Wade is recognizing, admitting that his companies were incurring these expenses, paying for these expenses that he may or may not have been claiming as, taxable revenue at a personal level, but then she was repaying him for those in cash that presumably he was not declaring. And I think he actually admitted he wasn't declaring it. Wild. All right, so Nathan Wade testifies, I couldn't have had a relationship with her in 2020, 2021 because I was being treated for cancer. Everyone should feel bad for me. And I was very nervous about COVID, so I was staying in hermetically sealed environments. Cross-examination comes around and says, look, you admitted you were at Yurdi's apartment. You were hanging out with FANI Willis. Why would you have been at Yurdi's apartment? Oh, he says, well, I was going to restaurants, the airport's there. I wasn't there having sex. I was there for a Porsche experience. I don't even know what the hell that is. I was there because the airport's near there. I was there because the restaurants are near there. I wasn't there to have sex with FANI. I was there for totally other unrelated reasons. And those are them, restaurant, airport, Porsche. To which he was asked, you said you were very germ conscious because you were going through treatment for what seems to be prostate cancer. Is the airport very germ-free? Nope. Is the restaurant very germ-free? Nope. Is the Porsche experience very... Nope. The story fell apart at the seams on its own premises. But then this is where it got amazing. After Nathan Wade testified, they got back into the debate as to whether or not the subpoena for FANI Willis should be quashed. You recall they were motioning to quash this on Monday. They were saying FANI Willis has no unique knowledge. This is extraordinary. You have to have a very damn good reason to subpoena the prosecuting attorney, etc., etc. Quash the subpoena, Your Honor. Quash it. And they entered into that debate today for a good, I would say 20, 30 minutes. why it should be quashed, presented. Ashley Merchant responded. And then, out of the blue, like it's scripted out of a bad movie, Fani Willis shows up in the room and says, I'm here, I'd love to testify. Oh, I want to testify. After her attorneys were sitting there trying to quash the subpoena for however long before. Okay, Fani Willis takes the stand. To say that she was unhinged, I would say is an understatement. First of all, and I'll say this, tongue in cheek, if anybody had any doubts, Fani Willis is a woman. Why do I say that? Not because she's hysterical, crazy, whatever, but because she had to have reminded the court at least 15 times. Play a drinking game as a woman, I'm a woman, I don't want men pay. If you took a shot every time Fani Willis said, as a woman, you'd be unconscious within a few minutes. She was very quick to play identity politics on gender, on race, and she was unhinged. First thing she does when she sits down basically says, I'm not the one on trial. You wanted to subpoena my bank statements? I'm not the one on trial. Those people are on trial. The ones who tried to overthrow the election. Sorry, Fani, you're on trial now, and I'm predicting it. You're going down, and not in the way that Nathan Wade wants. You're going down. You are getting disqualified from this because you clearly are conflicted. You clearly procured financial advantage from this wonderful business arrangement you had with the dude that you were stooping up until 2023. And it was clearly an unethical, corrupt relationship that you had. But she gets up there and says that, aggressive, entitled, belligerent. It was a full-on meltdown of testimony, and it's not over yet because they only got through the examination in chief. Now there's going to be the cross from her own attorneys tomorrow. And then there's going to be a redirect, but it was an absolute meltdown. She came out and said, so many lies in this paper. I wasn't having sex with Nathan Wade in 2019. I was only having sex with him in 2022. I wasn't having sex with him when we signed this contract. I was only having sex with him when we renewed it and increased the base billable hours that he can put into this file. Even assuming what they say is true, and it's all lies, it's still damning. Fani Willis contracted the first representation with one of Nathan Wade's partners. She contracted the taint review, not in the Trump case, but a taint review with another of his business partners, from which Nathan Wade was getting a third of that contract. She contracted with Nathan Wade, paid him however much he paid him, and then he split that three ways. She paid him and then took vacations with him when they fell in love in 2022. And then, in order to hide the fact that she procured lavish thousands of dollars of gifts via cruises and travel, she had to make the argument that she paid him back in cash with no receipts of withdrawals. Because her testimony was, her father, as a woman, my father always told me, have 6 months worth of cash somewhere in your house. She actually said this. Her father brought her up to make sure that she would keep 6 months worth of cash in the house. As a woman, it was very important to mention that as a woman, that she had all this cash just in her house. Where'd you get it from? I saved it over the years. Do you have any withdrawal receipts from your bank? Nope. I just had cash in the house. Tens of thousands. I only gave him 4 or 5 payments, reimbursements, one of which was $2,500 for their cruise to Aruba or wherever the hell it was. She admits to having paid him, reimbursed him in cash, untraceable, upwards of $10,000 worth of gifts, which would otherwise be gifts, but for the fact that she alleges she repaid him. And we're expected to believe her. She was belligerent. She was aggressive. She was juvenile, entitled. The judge had to reprimand her at least twice to say, look, answer the question and then offer whatever explanation you want instead of entering into these diatribes forever. What we are witnessing in real time is corruption in its truest form, and more important than the corruption, the incompetence, the sheer level of incompetence of the people who are in charge of counties, states, prosecutions, judges, because don't forget, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were judges. I don't know what kind of administrative court judges they were. They were judges. Now they're prosecutors interfering with elections. It's not just that they're belligerent, crooked, amoral, immoral degenerates. It's that they are so subpar in quality that it leaves you wondering, holy crab apples, if this is the system is crumbling. Anyhow, she's under oath still, can't talk about her testimony. She's coming back tomorrow. 8 hours sitting on my butt, plus whatever this is right here. That's the summary from day one. A debacle. Anybody watching it and spinning it saying Fani Willis came out defiant and triumphant, idiots. You would have to find that type of rubbish on Reddit, MSNBC, or CNN. It's a catastrophic disaster for them. And I am predicting it now. Although we're still going through this evidentiary hearing, they are being disqualified. This case is going to be totally dropped. And above and beyond the disqualification of FANI and Nathan, and in all likelihood, all of these charges being dropped, they're in big trouble with the IRS. And I mean that seriously. Unless the IRS just says, we don't need any cash and we're going to give a pass to our Democrat political buddies. What they basically admitted to, and Nathan Wade in particular, I'm going to expense it through the company, procure the benefit personally, and then take cash back from FANI Willis for what I've already expensed through the company and profited from privately, personally. So it's wild. And we're just supposed to believe that FANI Willis has $10,000 cash in her house. There was one other element. Oh, yes, that's right. As to when she went to live in Yurdi's condo, she said that, she's a victim. She's a woman. She's a victim. That she had to leave her house, that she paid for with blood, sweat, and tears because she was getting threats. Gangs were after her when she started doing the Trump thing. People wanted to get her left, right, and center. She had people showing up on her front door at 5 a.m. I think that was gang-related, not Trump-related. And that her father, an elderly man, was so scared for her, he said, you go and get out of here and you find safety. And that's why she went to Yurdi's condo. Had nothing to do with her, knocking boots with Nathan Wade. It was for her safety because she's a victim, because she's a woman, and she's being picked on. When cross-examined on that, where'd your father go? Oh, he was too scared because of COVID, so he stayed in the house where I was getting death threats, where I was no longer safe. He stayed there. All right, where'd your kids stay? Oh, well, they also seemingly stayed there because they didn't stay with her at Yurdi's apartment. So the story just falls apart on its face because they are all pathological liars. Like my grandmother said, to the day she died at 103, you don't need to have a good memory if you're telling the truth. A liar needs a good memory. I screwed it up. You don't need to have a good memory to tell the truth because the truth doesn't change over time. These are liars, and they are liars with bad memories and subpar performance. To be continued tomorrow. It's amazing. So we'll be live tomorrow, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to go stretch some muscles on my legs, people. Peace out.